Hi guys, and welcome to the second episode of this module, Drum Synthesis. We're on snares today. So I tried to break it apart into a few different stages. Snares are a little bit more difficult, I think, than kicks. They're pretty particular. Certainly with the transient to body kind of relationship, getting that right is really hard. So we're going to focus on that to start with, and then work outwards from there, adding noise layers and maybe some resonant kind of middle bits. So here's a little synth double I've set up here. My master chain's the exact same limiter as always, punchy, look ahead down, attack up, release down. Span is over here, set up at 8K this time as opposed to 4. That's just the kind of the detail, remember. I want to be able to see individual harmonics and stuff. By the way, if you want to bandpass and listen to individual parts of your spectrum, you hold Control or Command on Mac, and then the mouse wheel determines the cue. Okay, so obviously I'm going to rebuild this and kind of start from scratch, but yeah, I've got two parts then, the transient and the body. Getting the body to not sound really synthetic and like a ding is quite difficult, so I'm going to try and work around that a little bit. So it's fairly simple overall, but it's about being very precise. So let's load up 2 instances of kick 2 then. So transients, I'm going to have them last about 8 milliseconds or so. So I'm just going to set that up straight away. So let's set up some MIDI. Go for like G0 or something. Cool. So yeah, I'm going to straight away just kind of dial in the amount of time, the volume envelope, rather than use the ones in built. I like to just be able to see it and kind of count it in milliseconds and stuff like that. For some consistency. So based on what I just did here, it's about down here you get a readout of the time. So this is about 9 milliseconds. So I'm going to go for that. So full volume beforehand, then 9 milliseconds in, about there. Just going to drop off. I'm going to do that automation trick to make sure that Ableton remembers that it's actually at full volume when it loops. Okay, so I'm getting a bit of low end there that we don't want, but alright, so I'm going to turn off the click layers. We're going to use exclusively the sine wave here for the transient. So on the amp section of kick 2, we're going to make sure that the envelope triggers straight away. I'm not enjoying that kind of low end womp, so I'm just going to do something like this. Cool. Cool, so I'm going to start playing about with this now. So what I want is a very clear tick, but not with too much top end. I like to use the right click function to kind of bend these. That tends to get you quite a nice like kind of thwack without too much like harshness. That's pretty good. What I want to see is pretty much exactly that. So we've got not too much top end, and it's kind of quite a mid-rangey tick, which is quite important. You want this bit to kind of, if we bounce it out, you're going to see a really quick squiggle turn into a bit of like mid-range for just a very short amount of time. So let's just have a look at what we're working with at this point. That's snare 22. Alright. Yeah, so we've got something that starts at a slightly higher frequency and then slows down. If we, just like before, get in a reference, so let's find a snare. is one I made yesterday. Whether or not we'll get to that exact level, I don't know, because you know, I try to use all my best layers when I'm making my own snares and take hours over it. But what we'd like to see is yeah, this kind of high-end information and then turning into this kind of low oscillation, which is kind of the resonant body of the sound. So we'll keep that as our ref in purple, and keep working on this transient. So I think it needs a little bit more top end, but we can do that with some clipping. So we're going to use our trusty free clip to get some more harmonics out. You can tell when you've gone too far because it starts to sound like it's got too much top end. I like the sound of that there. Okay, cool. Well, let's try and start marrying that with some body then. So I'm going to put transients in yellow and light blue, sorry, and then I'm going to have the body in yellow, just like with the kick drum. So this automation then needs to be turned around from something turning off to something turning on. So I'm just going to kind of grab the appropriate sections and do the reverse. The body wants to last obviously a lot longer than the transient, but not too long. Let's have a look at our reference I did earlier. Cool. So let's turn that off and put some space between us and the reference, just so we can kind of hone in on this. Okay, so we've got the transient layer existing for a really short amount of time with some high end, and then we've got this body kind of sliding in. So the difficult part is getting these two to gel together, right? Also for the body to not just sound like a bing. So let's try that. So in the pitch part of kick 2, we're gonna, obviously this is the frequency readout, and that relates to obviously where this is on the frequency range. Let's go for something that's kind of going to end up in the right region. So let's just put them all to like 400-ish. I think that's a little bit too high for a snare right now. Let's go for like 250 or something. So maybe we can grab these, put them down to 250. So the trick is, I think, is to, like with the kick, if it settles for too long on one exact pitch, it just sounds really synthetic and fake. So I'm going to have it kind of slide into that and create a little bit of like a wider bubble, hopefully. We're getting a little bit of distortion. We've got the free clip on there, but just to kind of make sure we don't get any, because we want this to be quite a clean sound, I'm going to put Pro L on. And this time I'm going to use some look ahead. So that actually delays the sound arriving to your ears by however long you set it, and allows whatever plugin you're putting a look ahead on to know ahead of time what's going to happen, kind of analyze the sound before having to play it essentially. So any peaks that come in get reduced in volume before they are allowed to distort. So no look ahead is great for transients and stuff, but a look ahead is a nice safety net for you when you want a body to not distort at all. So let's just listen to them together straight away. It's not bad. It's not bad at all. But again, it's got that thing of it's a little too static. I want it to kind of slide. So let's try moving it a little bit. So it's going to start at a higher pitch and then move down into our kind of eventual 250 range. So that's already a little bit better. There we go, because what I'm trying to avoid basically is it looking completely like a sine wave on in my analyzer. if you have it slide down a little bit, like it would in real life, or I don't know, not in the digital world. I just don't think everything would happen that uniformly. So if we have a look at this sine wave, I don't want it to look like just a straight up tone. Cool. Alright, so let's get rid of that horrible little beep and focus on these two together then. Not bad at all. Kick 2 is doing some weird stuff with one of them to create some low end, but that's fine. We can get rid of that on the bounce. So let's bounce those out. So transient plus body 1. Okay, so let's import that back in then, and maybe move over here. Okay, so there's actually a little gap there between the transient and it meeting the body, but as long as it sounds good, that's fine with me. Okay, so let's make some, let's get some noise layers. So we're going to add some audio channels, some MIDI channels, sorry, and import Serum, which again, I'm sure if you're making drum and bass, you've got this. So I don't want to use many samples or any, if possible. I think it's a bit of a cheat. Well, that's not true. I don't want to do a course where you might not have the right samples and not know how to recreate this in the future. I want to give you the tools to be able to do it, you know, anytime. So let's put this in some wacky color and then see what we can do. So we want to make sure that one of the kind of rules I have is no transient overlapping. So let's make sure this noise layer is going to come in a good bit after the transient. So let's have it kind of swoop in like that. And then, yeah, draw on our own decay, something like that. And let's just start having a listen to it. Obviously that's not loud enough. So I'm using the noise generator on Serum here. That's not great, but it's a decent start. Just a little bit of EQ there. So it needs to be a lot louder, I think. We want to be seeing, if we look at our reference snare, this is very loud, by the way. We probably don't need to go to those extents. Usually you want to see it about -36. I was pushing the kind of boundaries with distortion there. It's probably a little bit too much. So yeah, this definitely needs to be a lot louder, but it's only one layer of many, so let's not go too crazy with it. Cool, so let's make another copy then and start using some other layers. So let's go into noise here, organics, maybe shush. That's actually not bad. Some of these more spiky ones can be quite good. There's a few tricks I've learnt when making drums and looking at span. If you want to mess with the harmonics of stuff and flatten stuff out, I use this frequency shifter tool quite a lot. It's got two modes: the shift mode, which you can just pitch stuff up and down, which can be very useful, and then the ring shifting mode, which is like a really quick tremolo. at the much higher ranges, it kind of softens stuff in a weird way. Moves the harmonics around. So I use a combination of these two quite a lot when working with drums to shift frequencies about and create some new textures. So I'm gonna maybe let's see how that sounds with everything. I prefer that with the ring shifter on there. That's not bad. We want to think about doing stuff in stereo as well. So let's maybe add some dimension expander via Serum FX. So hyper/dimension. Turn the mix down on the hyper, and let's whack up the mix on the dimension. Okay, that's something. So let's duplicate that whole channel, and let's play with a different noise. So let's go for shush 2. Let's play with this first one then. So again, let's use that frequency shifter tool, put it on ring. That sounds a lot nicer to me than just the straight. So it's like grittiness to it, like you can hear the LFO kind of doing really quick repetitions, especially there or at lower values. Cool, so again, let's keep going. What's cymbal loops on it? That's perfect. So maybe that one should last a little bit longer than the rest. So it's starting to sound alright. What I don't like is that it sounds super synthetic still. I want to add in some of those harmonics to make it sound a bit real. So I've actually got a little rack set up for that already. Let's kind of try and deconstruct that a little bit. So if we look over here, this is one I made from just using Serum and some distortion. So let's have a look at that rack. That looks like this. So I started with a Serum playing a sine wave. Let's kind of take it out of the group and listen to it by itself, if I can. And then that's actually getting pushed through some distortion and quite a few crazy effects actually. A lot of the frequency shifter and ring shifting techniques. But yeah, let's kind of create our own one then. So let's go back up here to our snare, which I think is over here somewhere. Where are you? There we go. Cool, so let's start with a new instance of Serum. Okay. Let's build a little MIDI clip. Let's put it in orange or something. We're going to group this. We're going to process quite a few things together here. So yeah, it's just going to be a simple sine wave. So we can get rid of the EQ that comes as a default on my one. If this skin's confusing, let's put it back to default. So let's go analog, basic shapes. Just got a sine wave here. Cool. We want that in combination with some noise. So maybe let's grab this one. So that's the first completely just straight white noise one with a ring shifter on it. So we want a bit of noise for sure. Maybe take out that EQ. Cool. So now we've got in this same group, so we can press them together. We've got a sine wave and some noise. We also want to make sure that this one, it's not going to conflict with the transient. So use this utility on here as well. Just making sure that the transient's being avoided. So I'm going to put trash 2 on now, which obviously, if you make drum and bass, you're probably pretty aware of. It's one of the most important tools in my production, to be honest. I think I use it on pretty much every single sound. So I'm going to make sure the envelope stays the same. After you distort something, it tends to exaggerate the envelope. So I just want to make sure that after the distortion, it's still staying in check. So let's see what we can do then. Let's try fuzz positive. And let's try ring shifting it. So that's already sounding pretty good. If we isolate some of those. Yeah, not bad at all. I feel like there's some phase alignment issues going on there. So let's play with this this automation here. I think it's coming in a little bit too late, and they sound a little bit separate. So remembering that our transient's about 8 milliseconds long, that takes us to about there. So let's have this coming in a little bit earlier. In fact, what we could do is have them just one clean automation on the whole one, rather than having quite a few. Okay, let's get this out of the way. Let's zoom in on this. So that's your 8 milliseconds there. That's not bad at all. You really get used to hearing a certain type of volume envelope once you do it for a while. Those resonances, if they last too long, or if they last longer than the white noise, sometimes they stick out in a weird way. So I'm going to get some width on them as well, in the same way as before. Dimension expander. So mix up, size down. Try even pitching the snare down a bit. Let's see what else we can do to that transient as well. Maybe let's double up the audio file, and then we can. So essentially, now what's happening is that the start of the sound is going to become a lot louder, if it's possible, if it's not already at peak. And then we could do some distortion to it, maybe, to create some more upper harmonics. So let's go for tape saturation. Try that. That's helped quite a lot, actually. I'm looking at this and I'm thinking maybe we could have this come a little bit smoother. Because there's this weird gap. Perhaps if we grab a moment where it's at the top there, and then maybe this mode where it's at the top as well. We might join together. Not quite. Let's see if we can get closer. That looks pretty good. That's not a bad first attempt. Let's bounce that as BG snare V1. So obviously we're doing it in a very limited scenario where we're not using any samples whatsoever. I'd definitely be using some real snare in there, and some clap maybe. But let's see what else we can do with this. Let's copy this resonant group, change it slightly. So let's call these resos, and then resos 2. I'm gonna put them in orange. So for the second one, then let's change the ring shift position and maybe the pitch of this sine wave. Let's go up 3 semitones, just randomly choosing something there. They sound a little too much like a chord, which doesn't sound very real. Tried panning them there, didn't sound too good, so I'm going to take that out. Yeah, I quite like the sound of that. So to take this just a step further, I'm going to add some actual real layers on there. I'll include these with the project file, so we're all kind of together with the same content. For me, there's only so far you can go, or so far I can go with a drum sound, purely with synths and stock stuff. I wanted to do the vast majority without, and then from the very end there, just to add some more layers. So we've got BG snare. Let's have a look at you. So it's sounding pretty good actually, man. Cool, so big drums in dark blue. Let's get some other layers in there then. So let's have a look. I've got the stock battery stuff kind of laid in here. Maybe let's do a bit of clap. So I'm going to put these lighter layers in a lighter colour. As I said before, it's important to have all these layers balanced out, you know, one without all the new layers, as I already have, and then one with the next one. So let's keep going with layers then. So if we go into snares then. So again, these are from Battery 4, the native instrument kind of stock sampler. Nothing special about these. You'll have much cooler samples, I'm sure. Feel free to use those as layers. So let's go into snare. Let's go down to the pendulum ones are pretty good. I was never sure if Rob Swire was involved in these or if they've just named him after him. But if I can find P, maybe I'm being a bit of an idiot. There we go. That's got some coolness, some realness in the mid-range. Super important then to not be overlapping that that transient. Let's maybe turn this up. So we've got some confliction going on there, and that's because we haven't got removed enough of these kind of lower fundamental sounds. We want things we want to never really overlap are transients and bodies. So the body is obviously the kind of the low resonant part of this. Let's get our span up again. So anything in this range needs to be pretty much cut out of any new layers, and the start of the sound, this transient, wants to be left alone as well. Cool. So. Also, let's do some phase alignment, so I'm feeling like it's coming in too early. So you can hear at that point it starts to sound a bit bad, so. I'm going to try and maybe add some more high into that transient. So I'm just going to copy this sound, and then just at the very start add in some, maybe even less than that. If we distort it, we're going to create more high-end harmonics, which is going to get us some quicker squiggles here, which is kind of what I look for in these drums. So I'm going to go for trash. Let's try free clip, actually. Let's do a bit of a comparison. Not hearing a huge amount of difference there, although I think this is coming out really quiet. Let's have a look on our limiter. No, it's not. Let's try something a little bit more aggressive then. Trash 2, tape saturation. Take the limiter off. Don't think it's really doing much, but it might just help poke through our mix that much more. Might turn that up a slight bit. Cool. So let's export that, have a look at it, and then that might be it for this snare lesson. So BG Snare V2. Come on. Perfect time to crash. Alright, cool. Let's have a look. It's a nice sausage. There's some good squiggles at the start there. Yeah, that did a little bit. So it didn't sound that much different, but this extra bit of high end may just push through our dense mix a little bit better than the previous version. I think that's pretty good. So if we quickly set up a little loop with sort of snare there, and put our kick in as well. So nice, we did well with these ones. They're definitely going to work in the mix quite nicely. as I say, that's kind of the beauty with taking your time over these individual hits, is that yes, you might have to invest hours into it, but once you have them, you know, the top end layer, the clap layer, the resonant layer, the snare, the transient, the body, all those can be stripped apart and used in different as different layers in new drums. So I very rarely actually have to make a snare from scratch. I'll use previous like kick transients or bottom ends, layer them with new ones, and you very easily and quickly get new results. Beautiful. All right, so next one, on to percussion and hats. Cheers, guys.